I believe our God is an abundant God. I believe any thought of lack, honestly, comes from fear and comes from evil and the devil. I don't believe that God means for anything for you and me other than to be hugely abundant, hugely successful, hugely rich.
Welcome to Wealth Embodied. Together, along with some amazing guests, we'll explore and tap into our innate abundance and have meaningful conversations about developing our ability to embody the vibration of wealth while also uncovering new ways to think, feel, and cultivate our relationship with money so we can live our lives wealthy and aligned. Let's welcome our host, Alara Sage.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Wealth Embodied, where we activate and inspire you in your wealth consciousness, in your visionary impact, and your creative genius. I'm your host, Alara Sage, and today we have our wonderful guest, Nicky Billou, who is a two-time New York bestselling author. He is an in-demand and highly inspirational speaker for corporate audiences, and he's the founder of eCircle Academy. So, Nicky, I would love to start the conversation with your backstory of being an immigrant and coming to the U.S. Tell us a little bit about that part of your life. How old were you, and what was that experience for you?
What a spectacular question. As you said, I'm originally an immigrant from the Middle East. I'm a Christian from Iran. When I was 11 years old, back in 1978, the Islamic Revolution took place in Iran. And my mom and dad, who were incredible human beings, they were Iranians, but they had been educated in the West. My dad had a university degree from a university in London, England, and my mother had a university degree from a university in Copenhagen, Denmark. So for Iran, that was a big deal. These were cosmopolitan, worldly people, and they looked at what was happening in the context of the backdrop of global history, but they also saw there was like gun battles in the streets, Alara, you know what I'm saying? And they're like, whoa, this is not a place to raise like a Christian family with little kids, right? So what they did is they sat, they talked, they made a plan, and they took me and my two younger brothers out of Iran, and they settled us first in Europe. We were first in Athens, Greece, and then to Toronto, Canada, which is where I now live. And it took nearly 4 years for that whole process to be complete, right? I was 11 when it started. I was just shy of 15 when we landed in Canada. But as you can imagine, I was still a kid. You know, I didn't want to leave the only home I'd ever known. I didn't want to leave friends that had been my best friends since the time I was born. It was heartbreaking. It was devastating at a lot of levels. And I was upset. But as time went on, and as I started to experience life in a free society, in the free West, I began to realize what an absolutely incredible sacrifice my mom and dad had made for me and my two brothers. Think about it. They left behind everyone and everything they knew to give us a chance at a better future. And I'm in awe of what they did right now, you know, an absolute awe of it, because I'd like to think I'd be able to do what they did faced with the same circumstances, but I don't know. You know, I just don't know, and I won't know. And hopefully I'll never have to know the throes of a revolution happening and forcing me to choose between my home and the future for my family. But growing up in this fashion, I became so grateful for freedom, because the legacy in Iran was a legacy of tyranny, of a repression, of authoritarianism, right? You know, it always makes me chuckle when certain very naive people in the West say, this is the most horrible, oppressive, racist, sexist blah, blah, blah state in the world. I'm like, are you fucking nuts? Excuse my language. It
No,
is
it's just
absolutely the safest, freest, best place the world has ever seen. Kiss the ground that you walk on. Be grateful that you're here. Because if you had your pink hair and you had your I'm binary, non-binary in Iran, they'd round you up, rape you, and shoot you in that order. In that order. You know, and I go, I'm so grateful to be here. And I think if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a free spirit, if you're somebody who's out there trying to create in the world, you should be grateful that you live in a free society, that you can express your thoughts, that you can go out and create a business for yourself that you choose, that some government official didn't force you to do and then give 3/4 of your money to them just to be able to be in business, right? And that's why, like for me, if you ask me my backstory, what am I all about? I'm the freedom man. I'm the freedom man. I'm all about that. And I want to help entrepreneurs, free spirits, good men and women who want to make a difference. I want them to be able to take full advantage of the freedoms we have to live a life that sees them soar to the skies and make their fondest dreams come alive. Alive. That's what it's all about for me.
of course, I feel your passion, and while you're expressing, I'm simply in presence to the beauty of your passion and the deep connection that you have with this freedom and the gratitude for that. Because gratitude, it it expands our energetic field, it expands our heart, it expands our energy, and it makes spaciousness for us to connect deeply with life, to the moment, to feel, just like you said, this is living. And I get to choose right now in this moment how I live. And when we experience that gratitude, it's like putting on those rose-colored glasses. Everything, the color literally transforms around you. You perceive your reality through a different lens than if you were like, screw this country, it's so racist, everything you said before. That's a different lens of perception. And you will experience your reality through the lens of your perception. So as you come in with this passion and this gratitude, I can see very clearly why you have been so deeply successful. You know, on your Podmatch profile, Successful Minds says that you are with a heart of gold and a roar of a lion, which is so clearly obvious. And simultaneously, what does that mean to you?
You know, all of that came from my father as an example. So let me tell you a bit about my father. He had a regal name. They named him Napoleon after the great French leader. And he was the greatest man I've ever known in any context. Now, I'm a bit biased. He was my father, but let me just tell you about him so you understand why I say these things. So if you were a friend or an acquaintance of his and you came to him, you know, in Iran back in his day was a very formal place, right? You call people not by their first names, but by Mr. and Miss and Mrs. and that sort of thing. So you'd go sit with him and you'd say, Mr. Billou, help me. I need a job. He would say, come with me. And he'd say, sit in my office right here. And he would ask you a few questions about what kind of skills you had. And he had a deep Rolodex, right? And he would call all his friends in the Rolodex. And these were other business owners. These were officials in government that had departments. And he would just call them up and he would just charm, wheedle, needle, wheel, and deal until he found someone who was willing to give you a job. And he would just, like, he'd clear his calendar to do that. And then he'd say, okay, hey, Alara, you know what? I got you a job. You're the director of marketing at, X, Y, and Z export company. You start now. Here's the address. Here's the salary. Bye. Right. And he would do that. Like, he's done this like hundreds of times for people, hundreds of times. And if you were trying to start a business, well, he was a successful businessman, and he was unusual because he did his MBA. Like in Iran in that time, the MBA was like not something a lot of people had done. So people would go to him for advice. They go, listen, I'm trying to start a business. Would you look at it? Would you give me your thoughts? And he would sit down with you, again, clear his calendar, look at your business, take notes, ask questions, and then he'd give you his best advice. And if he felt that you needed, for example, access to some capital based on what you guys discussed, he'd introduce you to some people who could get you capital. If he thought someone could be a good client for you, he'd make that introduction for you as well. And he did this for people that were going into the same line of business as him. And people would always say, why are you like starting competitors? And he's going, there's no competition, man. These guys just starting out. Come on, give me a break, man. Like, I'm good. And he didn't believe in competition. He just thought God was going to take care of him, and then finally, and this is the part that blows everyone away when I share this. If you were a friend or an acquaintance and you were in Iran was a second world country at the time, right? So their banking systems and whatnot, but not as well refined as here. If you were trying to buy a car or a house, the bank would say, I'm giving you this much. And whether that was enough to buy the car or the house, they didn't care. This is what they're giving you. And people would go to him and say, look, the bank gave me this much. Can I get a loan from you? And I'll pay you back. I'll pay you back at the bank, right? And he's like, yeah, sure. Whatever it was, he wrote him a check. And now this is when it gets really good. They'd come back to try to pay him back. And he would get mad and shoo them out of his office and said, get out of here. He's going, no, that was a loan you gave me. He says, that was no loan. That was a gift from my heart to you. Are you going to insult me by giving me money? And when I share the story, some people get very skeptical and they go, listen, come on, really? Who does that? Nobody does that. Nobody does that. Like, come on, that's like a Hollywood, script, a bad one, right? That, this is like, It's a Wonderful Life, that kind of script, right? They'd say it's like that, Frank Capra, old movies like that. And I go, no, man, my dad really did that. And they go, why would he do that? What's in it for him? And unfortunately, there's a level of cynicism out there in the world. That's just the way it is. And I always answer them. I go, I'll tell you what was in it for him, because there was something in it for him, 100%. Maybe not what they thought. First and foremost, he was a devout and committed Christian. He didn't take himself very seriously, but he took his faith very seriously. And he believed to his core he'd been blessed by God and his Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And that it was his duty as a devout and committed Christian to share those blessings with his fellow man and woman. And like I'm telling you, that was a big deal to him. Dad gave away a lot of money. That was one reason he did it. The second reason he did it was, well, he could. He was really, really successful. He made a lot of money. And he just believed the more he put out there, the more came back to him. And it seemed to be true. And I was his son. I watched him do all this. I saw people come to the house, and people I don't know would come to me because my last name is very unusual, right? Billou. There's not a lot of Billous out there in the world. And they just go, excuse me, your last name is Billou? And I go, yeah. And they say, you wouldn't by any chance be related to a Napoleon Billou? I go, yeah, that's my father. And he's passed on now. And then their eyes would light up, and they'd come to me and share with me this deep, wrenching story of how they were like in the worst place in life. And this man that in their view barely knew them helped them like an angel would. And they'd say, you're a son, I never was able to do anything for him, but if I can do it for you, I want to, I need to, someone would say. And I'd just say, thank you, I'm good, appreciate it, it's great. And Dad would say to me as I'm growing up, son, life is about people. It's not about money. And like, I'm a kid. I'm like, okay, Dad, whatever you say, like, sure. And then he said, business, son, business is about people, not about money. Now, as a kid, that didn't make sense to me. And I'd go, Dad, what are you talking about? You can't do business without money, right? You have to pay to buy things. He goes, that's true. He said, but you can't have a business or money without people. What is business, son? Business is about solving problems for people for a profit. I love Venn diagrams. I'm in the thought leadership business. I create a lot of models. You know what I mean? That's my shtick. So I did problems, people, profit. Boom. That's the purpose of business, where all three of them intersect. You solve acute problems for amazing people. You make an awesome profit. And Dad would always say to me, believe in people. Everyone needs someone to believe in them. Me, you, everyone. There's days where our self-belief wobbles. And it takes someone else looking at us and seeing us and reminding us who we really are. And I got into business to take that torch. When my dad passed away, I took that Billou torch from him of loving people and believing in people. And that's what I do. Like, look, you've been very kind to say about the things I've accomplished in my life, and I'm proud of all of them. Don't get me wrong. But I'm the most proud that I'm Napoleon Billou's son. And I give a good gosh darn about my fellow man, and I believe in them.
I again deeply honor you, because one of the things that I love to teach about wealth is, to me, it's the art of exchange. And exchange is all about relationship. We're exchanging with ourselves. We're exchanging with the universe. We're exchanging with each other. And it's about the quality of that exchange. You know, earlier we spoke about gratitude. It's about really receiving what comes to you with an open heart, and the profundity of the honor that you are in the ability to receive it. You know, as well as, it's not just the good things. We can receive the challenges. We can receive our shadows, our mistakes, our failures, our weaknesses deeply into our heart, and thus release the grace of God through that process. And conversely, to give, to spend, to bring forth love in action, love in money, love through business.
Amen.
These teachings are not normal society. And so I knew when I connected to your profile that we were going to have this very delicious and deep conversation. And I love speaking to people who have embodied this and brought this forth in a very successful way. And because it is lights like you that help other people to see it's, yes, strategy, yes, plans and logic. All of this is very important. But the core of what really fucking matters is the ability to receive in our hearts and give from our hearts, and to be fully present to, as we said earlier, life and the aliveness and the movement and everything that comes our way. And as you so wonderfully put, people. So I know that you're a man of faith, and this is another, you know, very interesting topic, because God and money don't always go together. And people say they shouldn't. And, you know, we're greedy and selfish if we're making lots of money while people are out there starving and struggling. And so I would love to hear how you feel. What is your take on how God and money exist, coexist, and create together?
That's a great question. If you look around the world and you believe in God and that God created this world, you see that everywhere all around us is unbelievable abundance. Unbelievable abundance. When you go to an apple tree, it doesn't just give you one or two apples. It gives you hundreds and thousands of apples. And in a field of apple trees, there are thousands of trees. I mean, we were created with the bounty of the world at our feet.
Yes, literally.
At our feet. And, you know, I'm going to say something that might be a little bit politically incorrect, so pardon me for doing that. But the very act of creation, of bringing a life into the world, a man and a woman make love, right? There are tens of millions of sperm that travel inside of that beautiful woman, one of whom turns into a life. God put tens of millions of sperm there to make sure that the life got created. I believe our God is an abundant God. I believe any thought of lack, honestly, comes from fear and comes from evil and the devil. I don't believe that God means for anything for you and me other than to be hugely abundant, hugely successful, hugely rich. And those people that think that that's not the case have a fundamental misunderstanding of who God is and what God wants for them and for us.
I love the concept of the apple tree because I always speak to the apple tree, ironically enough, in a kind of different way, but same thing with abundance. And, that mother Gaia, you said, literally at our feet, she produces all of our resources, right, for our humanness, for our human life. And it is so abundant. And scarcity, lack, it hurts. It literally hurts our bodies. It creates spaces where we start to hoard, where we collect, where we can't be so giving like your father was, right? Like if he was in a deep state of lack and fear of how he was going to survive and believing in such a thing, I can't answer this question, but would he have been able to give as graciously as he had? He may have. Some people still have that capacity to their deathbed, and we cannot deny that there is a very different space between when we are suffering and barely surviving versus when we have the capacity of resource at our fingertips, and what change we can create with that. Money has such a profound impact where we place that money, what businesses we choose to invest in, what businesses we choose to purchase from, right? Like simple things like, where do you purchase your paper products from, and what kind of company is that? And all of that is you giving love, to that company or to that company. It's so deeply impactful on an energetic level. And so to think that we're not allowed to circulate that love and to amplify the evolution of humanity through the communion with money and what I believe love and God, as you said, I also agree, I believe is a fear and ultimately a belief of separation from God himself.
Yes, 100%.
So this wonderful experience you had with your father and this beautiful relationship you have with people, is there anything else that you would say has been the absolute core of your success?
The type of people I work with, there's really two types, but there's one that comprises the overwhelming majority of them. And they tend to be people that are in business, usually for themselves. They're unemployable in a sense. They don't want to work for someone else. But they also aren't like empire builders looking to have like 30 people working for them or anything like that. They tend to be like a thought leader, an authority, an expert, a coach, a guide, a consultant. They come under many names and guises, but they're usually a single person. Maybe you have one or two people helping them, and that's it, right? That's the kind of person we're talking about. And just for the purpose of this discussion, I'm going to call him a coach, but that term is going to encompass a lot more. And there'll be people that I mean to fall under that term that will themselves reject that term. Okay. But you understand what I'm going with this and what I'm saying here. And I'm like a coach to those coaches, right? And the reason that's important is because like I was in corporate and it was sucking my soul dry. But I learned a lot of things while I was there. I'm glad I left at the end of the day, but I learned how to work with people, and I learned how to market, and I learned how to sell, and I'm grateful for that. And then when I went out on my own, I started to work in health and well-being and fitness, and I worked with Olympic champions. And these guys helped me learn how to like perform at the highest level from a health and physical and mindset point of view. So I started to work with top performers in business. And then I became, a coach, and I helped a lot of people do really well. I helped a lot of people get fit. I helped a lot of people make a lot of money. And it was a little bit, for me, like I've been passionate about helping the good people who are really good at what they do. Like they're a real expert, but they're not an expert at business. You understand what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Like when
Yeah.
it comes to business, to marketing, to selling, to all that encompasses, they're a little lost. They may not even want to admit it, but inside they know they are, right? And selling especially, like I look at selling in a very different way from most people, but a lot of people in this space that I'm talking about, they're scared to sell. They're scared to have a conversation and ask people to do business with them, right? And the challenge with that, Alara, is they don't get business they should get. Like people that need their help, that need their expertise, they won't go after them properly, so they won't get them. And then some charlatan marketer, I call him, who doesn't have any of those compunctions will swoop in and grab that business. And they don't care whether they deliver or not. If they deliver, it's a happy accident. Okay. And so the sum total of goodness in the world goes down when all that happens, because this heart-driven coach, well, they're going to get hurt because their business stays stagnant and their belief in themselves stays stagnant. The client gets hurt because whatever they wanted help with, they're really not going to get that help, right? They're just going to pay out money and they're going to become cynical about all people in this field or thieves or whatever. And even the charlatan gets hurt because I believe in the law of what goes around comes around. And I believe these charlatans are damaged people, damaged souls. And this is continuing to damage them, this behavior. So the sum total of goodness comes in the world. And then comes Nicky going, okay, well, I understand business. I come from a business family. I studied business in university. I got a master's degree in international business and diplomacy and trade. And I know how to sell. And I'm like, okay, I can help these people. So what's the first thought that went into my head is let's help them not look at sales as sales. Because, Alara, who wants to be sold? Do you want to be sold? I don't want to be sold. Nobody wants to be sold. But Alara, don't you love being helped and served by a caring human being when you have an issue that you need help with? Of course you do. So do I. So I help them reframe sales to service, to love, to advocacy. So I don't do sales calls, girl. I do service calls. I do love calls. Again, politically incorrect to say these things, but that's the truth. And when I've helped these people look at it not as selling and being pushy and reeking of commission breath when you walk in the room, but looking at it from the point of view of I'm here to serve, these people have doubled, tripled, quadrupled, tenfolded their income, and their self-belief rises, and they get to fulfill their purpose, right? Like that to me is so important. And I could tell you dozens of stories of people like this. I'll tell you a quick one. There was a woman who was a functional medicine doctor. I'm going to call her Dr. Vicky. It's not her real name. She doesn't like publicity in this way. She came to me because she was stuck and she wanted to break out of her income plateau. And she had a big why. Her father was dying of brain cancer, glioblastoma. And she was daddy's girl. You know what I mean? He was her hero. 6 months later, he did pass away. I went to his wake. And she came to me and she said, I got to honor this man by becoming successful. Like he was a successful man. I got to do it. Help me. I know what I'm doing. I don't know business. And I said, okay, let's look at what you do. So the first thing we did was look at who she helped. And Alara, I think you're not going to be surprised when I tell you her answer was, well, I can help anybody with any health problem. I'm like, okay, that's why you're stuck, because nobody really knows what you do and we got to narrow your focus. So I'm going to take you through a little exercise I created called the ideal client exercise. And imagine a Venn diagram again with your ideal client written at the top. It's the people that you have gotten the best results for, the people that you love and enjoy working with the most, and the people that are easy to transact with and do business. So I said, make a list of all three of those. She did. And I said, who is on all three lists? She came back with that. Great information. They were almost all women, almost all over 45, almost all happily married with kids, and very successful, either owning their own business or in a professional career. So you listen to this and you might go, well, why the hell did they go see her with all this going right? Right? I'll tell you why. They all felt they were no longer that young, vibrant, beautiful woman. And listen, Alara, I'm a man. I don't get this maybe as much as you would as a woman, but I've heard that women really like feeling young, vibrant, beautiful all their lives. Right? So, she said to me, here's the deal. Getting older is inevitable. The number will go up every year, right? Next year, you'll be 1 year older than you are this year. I can't stop that. Mm-hmm. But aging, that's not so inevitable. You can be just as young, vibrant, beautiful, energized in your 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s as you were in your 20s, 30s, 40s. And like, really, that's real? That's a real thing? She said, oh, yeah. I said, okay, you can deliver on that? She said, I can deliver on that, and I have. And I said, okay. We came up with a great name for her program, and I'm proud that I came up with it. It's called Get Your Sexy Back. So Get Your Sexy Back was a hit. She doubled her business in 1 year. She doubled it again in her second year and again in her third year. She went from, say, about 6 figures a year to 6 figures a month. Wow. And she honored her dad every step of the way with this. And she helped these women. And she was known as someone who helped these women. And that was the power of heart-driven relationship between us and her. A big why on her part. Being coachable. She was really coachable. She was ready to take action. And she had the goods. She had the expertise. And there was a real need for it over there. And the formula for success, if you think about it, is first and foremost, you got to be an expert. You got to know what you're doing, and you got to have good business skills. So I help with those. But the other piece is you got to have the self-belief and the mindset. And I really help with that.
Which is really more like 80%. And strategy is 20%. Mindset, energetics, your inner belief, how you apply yourself. That's the key right there. So yeah, definitely celebrating you were able to help her. And I'm right there with her. You know, I believe that youth is something that we can maintain through that aliveness of life, through how we interact, through our relationships. And screw getting old. I don't know. I just don't resonate with that at all.
Amen. I'm with you there. I'm with you there. She actually helped inspire me to kind of do a lot to
that's beautiful.
Age backwards. So it was good.
Yes, exactly. It exists. It's real. And yes, I think we've both done it. So power to that. I know it's a little bit off topic, but I still want to create space for it. You have a new book.
I do. Thank you. So when I'm speaking to podcast, I mean, you understand podcasts, you're a host yourself. You get the power of podcasting. But for people who maybe don't want to be a host, or even for people who are a host, if you learn how to be a guest on a show and do it in a particular way, which took me 100 shows to do, and read my book rather than going on 100 shows, it'll save you a lot of time. Okay. A lot of time on how to do it right. This could be a source of part-time, 2-3 hours a week going on shows. It could be a source of like 6 figures to $250,000 in additional revenue for your business. And the name of my book is, it's a catchy name. It's Get Booked and Get Paid.
I love it. Straightforward to the point.
Amazon.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah. And, you know, the other thing about podcasting as a guest is it's very intimate, right? Going on, you know, mass media it's not an intimate setting. This is an intimate setting. And there's another person involved. So it's not like you're also just putting out content on YouTube or you're putting out videos. There's another person there's a conversation, there's an engagement, but it's an intimate one. And I think that really resonates with people, and it carries on, right? Like I have people reach out to me from podcasts that I've done years ago that they somehow fell upon. So it's not something that kind of fizzles out. People they come into contact with new podcasts and they can binge all of those episodes. And so it's a beautiful way to spread your word, and definitely those leads and, connect with people.
100%.
And of course, from a place of service and love. So thank you so much. And absolutely to the audience, to check out your book and also your other books. You have several books that I will have those in the show notes, because obviously you are a wealth of information and beautiful perspective and connection that I think anybody, whether they are an entrepreneur or not, can really receive from you. And of course, those of us who are entrepreneurs and coaches and soul-led visionaries and leaders and all of that are definitely can gain so much again from your light. So I'm grateful for your presence and all of your wisdom here today.
Thank you so much. Much appreciated.
And definitely to the audience, check out his books and all of the links I have here in the show notes. And, it's when we connect to these people who care, that have heart, that understand that wealth is not just money. It is money. It is resource. It is all of business and these different things, but it has more depth, much, much more depth to that. And when we really tap into that depth, that's where we tap into what I like to call inexhaustible wealth. So make sure you check it out. And as always, I love you so much. And until next time.
Thank you for being a part of Wealth Embodied. As you experience each new day, we want you to feel that you are capable of tapping into your innate abundance and living your life wealthy and aligned. If you want to be invited to the next episode, just subscribe to our podcast. And if you need more information in the meantime, go to alarasage.com.